Have you ever wondered what really goes on behind the scenes of government? How decisions are made that shape your community and your future? Welcome to Govern, the podcast where we take you inside the world of public service, leadership, and the innovation driving local change. Join us as we explore the roles of elected officials, how government operates, and what it takes to create real change. We'll dive into forward-thinking leadership lessons, and how we all can influence the decisions that shape our communities and futures. Thank you for tuning in to Govern with Supervisor Curt Hagman.
Hi, my name is Curt Hagman, and welcome to Govern. I'm the 4th District Supervisor of San Bernardino County, and in light of what we saw in LA County a couple months ago, the big fires, and we had windstorms here in the county, as well as the earthquake recently, we thought it'd be a great opportunity time for us to be prepared. I'm actually an old Eagle Scout, and that was one of our mottos of Boy Scouts, to be prepared, and to really kind of know what happens behind the scenes on a county the size of San Bernardino County, of what goes on and what that happens during emergencies. What do we do as a governing body? How do we interact with other cities and other state, federal agencies? And I have a fantastic guest with me today, Crisanta Gonzales, the Director of Office of Emergency Services for San Bernardino County.
Correct.
Right? You've been here about a year.
About a year.
And as soon as you came in, we started having disasters. So you really started off really good, right?
I did. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your background.
Okay. Yeah. I worked for 16 years for the state of California. I worked with the Department of Water Resources at the Oroville Dam. And then in their training office, I was a training officer for the ICS SIMS NIMS system. And then I was also with the State Controller's Office under John Chung in his continuity of operations for the business. And then I was also at the Department of Water Resources Flood Operations Center in East Sacramento. So that was the majority of my state work, about 16 years with the state work. And then I thought I was going to be an empty nester. So I started looking for a job that I thought I'd enjoy. And I found one called emergency manager. And that brought me to LA City. And I became an emergency manager for the Department of Transportation. And then after that, they recruited me over to emergency management department. I did 8 years there. And then there was an opening here in my home county. I'm from Ontario. I live in Ontario. So I thought, let me apply for that. And then here I am a year later.
That's awesome. Well, you've been doing a great job.
Thank you.
I know the board's very happy for what you're doing. You're getting great timely updates. And every time we have an incident, we get an email from you saying this is what's going on. We've activated. So let me start with some basics though. What is the Office of Emergency Management, the services for the county? What kind of staff do you have? What do you do?
So if any of you have ever seen the movie Volcano, the star of that movie was me. I do what that person does. So we activate an emergency operations center for the county whenever there's a disaster that's larger than the capacity of either our police department or our fire department. And so we have about 20 staff, 12 or 14 of them are emergency services officers, but we pull in a lot of county agencies. So we will pull in like human resources, public works, law branch, fire branch. So we are a multi-agency when we activate the EOC.
But on a normal day, if you're not activated, you have someone there 24/7?
No, it's just
It's really
Monday
only
Friday.
upon activation.
Right.
That's when you start going to the
We
extra
call it
hours.
Blue Sky. On Blue Sky days, we're Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is our core hours. So there's always someone there. We make sure there's someone there on our core hours. And during Blue Sky days, our mission is to prepare. So to make sure that we are out in the community preparing, that we're with our county departments preparing, that we're with our partnering agencies preparing. So we're reviewing our plans and we're doing tabletop exercise or functional exercise, different exercises, so that we can start training and preparing our departments. And we're really encouraging CERT, the Community Emergency Response Training Teams. We're really
There's a ton of acronyms when you do
I know.
the management stuff.
I know.
And a little bit of background about myself is when I first got back into the military and state guard, I was trained as a LNO officer, liaison officer for the military department of California, to go to county emergency, but more on the bigger emergencies with multi-county, multi-jurisdiction. I would go to the REOCs or the Big Axe, and we would be there to get requests from agencies like yours or ours for military support. I remember one time I worked on the Santa Barbara flood right after they had the fires,
Yeah.
and We told everybody to evacuate, and of course, no one does. And then the rains came, and people got flooded, and they lost their power, their water, electricity, and the local Santa Barbara didn't have the high water vehicles to go through the mud to go bring help, so that we brought in high water vehicles. So that's my limited experience on that. But I do know from that, all the training I took in that, there's a ton of acronyms.
Wow.
We talked about ISO, you talked about MIMS and SIMS and all these different things. But I think one of the things that California really took the lead on, I forgot how many decades ago,
1970s.
70s, we were the first ones to have a standardized system
Correct.
that all public safety agencies follow.
Southern California. And then in the 1990s, we did it across the state.
And then now, but it's like countrywide now, right?
9/11. 9/11, the President Bush said, what was the problems? And same thing has happened in the 70s, was repeated in the 90s, was repeated in 9/11, is that there was no standardized communication. Some people were using 10 codes.
Yeah.
Some people were using plain language. There was no way to pick equipment. Like, how do we call it an engine? Do we call it a truck? There was no standardized in equipment. There was no standardized in who was in charge. Is it the feds that are in charge? Is it the locals? So the president asked all the same questions and got the same answers. And so they said, you know what? California has a great
See, actually came up with a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to adopt a very, but what it is for every agency generally has trained personnel in this system that in the civilian world is called SIMS, right?
For the state. Yeah.
For the state.
NIMS for the nation.
Yeah. MIMS, right? I always thought it was military emergency management, but okay, the federal is MIMS, but it's the same system.
Same system.
You have a boss and you have different people in charge of one's logistics, one's operations.
Planning and intelligence.
Yes, all these different things. So we have that at the county. All my cities have that in their cities. Water agencies, school boards, they probably have a certain scale of that, that a certain number of our staff go in complete training.
Correct.
And make sure that they can communicate. And it is the plain talk, like you said, but there are different codes for what the certain kind of engines are and things like that. So when an emergency happens, it's not necessarily the same person in charge, right? It could be a fire, or it could be a law enforcement, or if we have lots of rains, it could be public works or something.
Public works. If we have a COVID, it's a public health.
Public health is in charge during COVID, right? So that's right. So it's a different set of expertise per whatever. And it doesn't have to be the same the whole time too. It can start off with a fire and then it can turn into a public safety. Now you got to go to the streets and all the rest. So that's what your team is coordinated all the time. And like you're saying, on the off times, that's you do your tabletops or planning.
And prepare the communities,
And go out and educate the rest of the community like we're doing here today. So that's great. So I remember before you came, we had our big snowstorm. And it's the first time ever happened like that in this particular area.
Yeah.
And we didn't have all the right equipment. So we had to learn from that. And after the after action report, when we go back and say what we did right and what we did wrong, we made some changes. We got new equipment.
We had a lot of changes.
Yes.
You guys.
And you're part of that new change.
Yeah, I was, but I was so excited to see the support from the supervisors to our CEO on down. It was just support left and right. What equipment do we need to get? What staff do we need to bring in, like myself and others? What changes do we need to make? Great, let's make them. What do we need to implement differently? Let's do that. So it's very refreshing to be in a county that cares so much about getting it right.
Well, speaking of county, okay, so you have the country's largest geographical county.
Yeah.
So you have pretty much everything. So you have been here for a little over a year now. What have you experienced so far as emergencies?
We've had earthquakes. We've had at least 4 in the last year. We've had public safety power shutoffs, which is a high wind event. Santa Ana winds cause power companies to shut our powers off. So we've had some flash flooding in our desert areas. We've had a little bit of snow up in our mountain areas to be cautious and keep an eye on. We've had a 30-plus day burn, which was our line and bridge fire. So now we're keeping an eye on the weather for the mud debris flows that could affect the mudslides. Yeah. So we have that. And then we were, I don't know if it's fortunate, lucky, we were the first jurisdiction in the United States to have a lithium battery catch on fire on our interstate.
Yeah, shut down in 15 for a couple of days.
Yes.
Until we pushed it off the side of the road and still burned for days after that.
Months.
It's crazy. So that's a new thing.
Very new.
It's not something you ever have experience. So we're trying to figure out how to handle those.
Yes. And it was not our jurisdiction. It was a state highway, state So we partnered with the state. We partnered with the CHP and with Caltrans, and we built some great relationships during that. And we were able to. Our fire department came out looking like heroes. They found a solution, and they were the ones that helped push it off the road. So San Bernardino County really came through.
I told him go get a tank up from Fort Irwin, use that. But
That would have been better.
okay, so we are the county of San Bernardino, and we have lots of instances. I think we have the most activations per year, right?
For our county.
For our county, yes, any other county because we're so big.
Mhm.
But we have many, many partners. Just in my district, I know I have multiple fire departments and police and sheriff. And so how does that communication work with the different agencies that we have in
So
Cam-
on the outside, when you see that there's a fire looming, internally, we're having what we're called coordination calls. And so I think some of your staff has been a member. So we bring everybody to the table. Everybody's invited, whether that's 200 people joining our call or 20 people, whoever, everybody's invited. And then we start to identify what are the priorities and what are the needs in those calls. So we set our agenda up to say, okay, it's a fire. Do we need a shelter? Do we need an animal shelter? Do we need to take care of our disabilities and functional needs? Is that IRC? Who has that list? So we start going through the issues and then identifying where our priorities are. And then at the end, we'll start to task people with, okay, bring that back. We're going to have another call in 6 hours or 20.
there's a schedule that I help
Battle rhythm.
the battle rhythm we have on every day. That's part of the Sims and Mims. We also have lots of pre-agreements with all the other
Aid
agents.
agreements, yes.
Yeah, they're called mutual aid. That means when we need them or they need us, we go and we figure out, or
A
someone
lot of
puts
mutual aid agreements with CAL FIRE here. So our fire has an understanding with CAL FIRE that they will support many of our towns, and we're contracted with CAL FIRE to support many of our jurisdictions.
And I think for our residents to know that there's a lot of federal lands in the high desert. They're the biggest landowner here is the federal government, which is U.S. forestry in some cases that's supposed to be taking care of that stuff. They're kind of short on the resources. So we have to back them or do majority of that.
Lion and Bridge Fire was a great example of that. A lot of that was state and federal land that burned there. And so it was very much a coordinated effort. We had an incident management team, and so we had like a camp. For those that are not familiar, it looks like a little city, and everybody comes together and meets every day and talks about that.
I think it's a great thing for people who haven't seen it. We physically have a building. In fact, you're getting a brand new building here pretty soon. You got to be pretty excited about that. But we're all the plans and technology and the training and all the communication comes with the big TVs, and hopefully we'll be state of the art when we're done with that.
Yeah.
When's that coming out?
December of this year.
December. So we're getting close. That's awesome. But there's also, like you said, the camps,
yeah.
that goes out, and that's where we stage people. That's where the firefighter strike teams or the law enforcement, wherever the case may be, because that's more toward the incident. But you as director generally don't go out there.
No.
And
those are boots on the ground.
The boots on the ground, but you have a kind of like a team leader out there who's in charge.
Officer, yeah.
That's in charge of that. And it could be a different agency who's in charge. A lot of times it's the county, but if it starts in a city and it grows out of a city, that city may be the initial incident commander, but then it may change to someone else, or as it goes. But that's what's the beauty about the system as we train is it's interoperable between multiple people, and they know their jobs, they know how to do it, and you could tag someone else to come in. So even though you're the boss today, you're there until you get relieved by someone else. You exchange, you give your briefing, and the next person walks in.
Yeah, because if let's say one of my staff shows up, they're the incident commander, right? Well, a fire staff, because my staff would be at the EOC. And then the next most experienced person comes in. And so the boots on the ground, they manage the incident. And so when they run out of resources, so we'll say it's a fire. When fire department says, hey, you know what, Crisanta, we're running out, we're going to need a shelter. This is getting close to homes, and there's a ranch over there with some animals. We're going to need you to get a shelter. Great. Then they can focus on their job, boots on the ground, and I can focus on helping them get whatever they need to support that. Oh, hey, we need 3 bulldozers. Can you work with Public Works to get us dozers? So that's my job. My job is to make their fighting the fire or whatever the incident is, to make their life easier and take care of those other. I manage, right? They fight the fires. They're boots on the ground. I manage resources. I manage people to make sure that we're supporting our residents and our first responders.
That's great. Switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
We're all part of the solution. or it could be part of the problem too. I think one of the biggest things I've been hearing from my residents a lot lately is homeowners insurance, for example. Obviously, there's been some massive fires here. We have a lot of home insurance agencies or insurance companies leaving the state. Um, we as a government official are trying to inquire a little bit, well, what we should be doing and how we could be proactive to help. But it comes down to us maintaining our own homes, um, and individually as homes as a neighborhood, how they are doing.
Yes.
And then really for us to be self-sufficient. The rule is what? You should be self-sufficient for a week?
A week to 14 days.
A week to 14 days. So that's a lot of the education that you're doing, trying to our residents. So tell us, what do we need to be self-sufficient?
So I'll start with hardening your home. You started there.
Yeah.
So I would encourage residents to go to prepare.sbcounty.gov. Or go to our fire department, our county fire department website, and they have a link on hardening your homes, which is what you're talking about, making sure your brush is cut back and your trees are cut back and all your home has all the things needed so that it can be missed by a fire. You're defending your line. So that's important to know that we have that information on our website. If you're near a flash flood area and you need sandbags, also our fire department has locations to where you can go pick up those sandbags, where you can go get filled them with sand and get them delivered to your home, or put them in your truck and you can take them home. So that we have a lot of resources on our website. So I do encourage everybody to go there for those two things. But when it comes to just general preparedness, you should be ready with your family to shelter for 7 to 14 days if we have an earthquake, or the opposite, be ready with your family to evacuate if there's an evacuation notice because of a fire. So those are two different processes. So if you're going to need to evacuate, you want to really have a good communication plan with your family. Like, if you're not together, where are we going to meet? How are we going to talk to each other? Are we going to text each other? What does that look like? So make sure you're talking to your family. And then I also very much encourage you to get to know your neighbors. Is there a vulnerable person in your neighborhood that maybe might need help evacuating? Is there an 80-year-old person who lives by themselves, or a mom maybe who's like 8 or 9 months pregnant and has little kids with her that might need help evacuating? Or is there someone who has, horses and dogs or cats, large animals that might need help? So it's really important to get to know your neighbors and kind of build that community, so that if you have to evacuate, everybody's talking to each other, everybody's checking on each other. Because we saw in the Paradise Fire, and in many instances around the world, the neighbors are the first ones to show up. The firefighters and the law enforcement and the responders, they're out fighting the fires to try and have it not come to you. So your neighbor is absolutely the first one who's going to get to you in the first 15 minutes, first hour, and that's critical sometimes.
So a little bit of situational awareness of your neighborhood, but a to-go bag. So let's talk about each one separately. So to evacuate, I get it. So my wife reminds me, my gas tank gets below 50%.
Yeah.
You always keep a full gas tank ready to go. A bag that's hopefully protected when you're not home from fires,
right,
in a fireproof area, but also that you grab real quick that has your passports, maybe your medications you may need, numbers, phone numbers, maybe a little currency, whatever. What do you put in your to-go bag?
So non-perishable food, some water bottles. I always suggest that you put some shoes in there in case you're woken up in the middle of the night. A flashlight in there, a bicycle helmet or a hard hat in case you're going through some debris type situations. And then your documents, I always suggest that you put them up in the cloud. That way, you know where they're at, but you should have your passport and your ID in there, your list of medications, your doctor's name, number, your emergency contacts in there. Those are the basic generals, but you can also go to our website and add more. If you have pets, you need to make sure you have an extra leash in there. You have some for dog food.
Or cat food.
Yeah, a little bowl to water. If you have children, their favorite toys, what's going to help them be calm, what's their favorite video game? Do you need a charger, your cell phone charger, all your electronic things like that? If you live with an elderly family member, what is their needs? Do they have special medical needs that you need to consider? So I know it's a lot to put in a little bag, but it's something to think about. If you have to run out of your house and you have less than 10 minutes, what should be in that bag so you don't have to worry about it?
So 10 minutes for evacuation. Now, for the earthquake comes and we're stuck at home for 14 days. The obvious parts are food and water. Can't get non-perishable in the water. But going a little bit more, what we should have at home.
So you want to drop, cover, and hold. For an earthquake, always drop, cover, and hold. Wait till the shaking stops. Then go check on your family. And once your family is okay, if you can stay in the house, fine. If not, if you feel more comfortable going outside, you need to know where your water shutoff is and you need to know where your gas shutoff is. You don't shut off your gas. You want to listen to if it's hissing or if you smell the sulfur or if you see the dial spinning. So if you don't see one of those three things, leave it alone. Because after an earthquake, it'll take 2 to 3 weeks for the gas company, who is the only qualified person, to come back and turn it on. So you want to know where your water is. You want to check for those three things in your gas. And only shut it off if you if you see one of those, and you shut it off just halfway. You just cut the valve up. So there should be a valve. You don't turn it; it just goes a quarter of a way, and you block the valve. And so then that way your house is protected from there. And then you want to go check on your neighbors. And so if they don't know how to check their gas, you want to kind of do a sweep of your neighborhood, because that could become very dangerous. If you have a garbage can and you have some rope and a tree is falling, you want to put your garbage cans around with some rope. So you want to kind of strengthen your neighborhood for each other and kind of get together and talk to each other and see how maybe you can, somebody has a barbecue, you can barbecue together. You can, don't open your freezers, leave that so you can all share and barbecue and cook and share water. If someone has a pool, that's great for flushing toilets, so you don't have to use any extra water. So a lot of tips and tricks that we encourage and we can train to and we can present if organizations want us to.
For community groups, because I was a volunteer-aholic, a lot of different community groups for a long time. What can we be as a county helping maybe them do to get neighborhoods or get cities a little more, or what can we do to help spread that tree out? Because everyone is potentially a first responder.
Yeah.
In any kind of incident, whether it's a car accident, whatever, so basic first aid training, what to do, those type of things. So, what can we use the current groups we have already infrastructure for, our volunteer organizations and different things we can pass that information to them.
Yes, on the oes.sbcounty.gov, we have where you can sign up for a CERT team, the Community Emergency Response Teams, and that is 20 hours of basic triage, how to check your neighborhood, how to basic first aid, all of those things. So I do encourage people to join their local CERT teams. We're also going to implement, and some of your cities I think already have it, is the Map Your Neighborhood program. So if you don't want to commit to the 20 hours of CERT and you just want to work with your block, whether that's a trailer park, your floor of your apartment building, your entire apartment building, or 7 homes, 10 to 7 homes or less, and you want to form a plan, there's a great tool that was created in Washington by Dr. Luann Johnson. It's available to everybody, and it's been shown to work across the United States, and it's Map Your Neighborhood. So we're going to be implementing that. We're bringing that into the county, and we're going to have that offered to local organizations who just want to kind of get together with their neighbors. So those are a couple of things. And then join every civic organization. So if your local police department has a neighborhood watch, great way to form that preparedness. Or if you have an HOA and they want to do a preparedness committee, we're more than happy to come present or help support your city if they need that information from us.
A long time ago, back on the city council here in Chino Hills, I remember that when we were preparing, we actually did a latchkey survey program and large animal survey program, which is hard to get people to admit to either one of them. But the little stickers in the house that your dog lives here or whatever. So we knew when their high fire areas came in that we knew kind of had a map. The problem is it doesn't stay updated. Yeah, it's good for maybe 6 months, a year, and that information gets degraded. But hopefully there's a way for our cities and stuff to work together. They can map out those type of people of needs, or if someone's wheelchair bound or something like that. So we know where that we need a little bit extra time to go help. And I know some of the planning you do is like for large animals. We have places designated throughout the county that we could take horses and cows and whatever the case may be. And then we have a list of volunteers or trailers that we could call upon to go out to help bring those large animals from point A to point B when the time comes in. So there's a lot of coordination going on behind the scenes. Now, this is going to be a fun one for you, because this is going to put me on a spot. What should elected officials do during emergency?
Very important. Very important. Elected officials are part of that process I was talking about, the boots on the ground are doing what they do. I'm managing resources. So the elected officials have the critical piece of informing our residents what's happening. So it's the responsibility or the privilege of the elected officials to take the information I send up the chain and keep our residents informed so that they're aware. Our residents are always on our social media pages, are always on our websites wanting to go information. So that's the critical piece for the elected officials.
But we're not there to tell any of the professionals what to do because we're not that job. Where we could be a link between the community and information, but that's about it.
And the second thing is if we need a proclamation, a proclamation to help open up funding or open up emergency access, that's also a critical role. You guys will come together and do that for us as well.
Yeah. No, it's a lot going on behind the scenes. And like you said, it's not just the police and fire, but you got public works, you got public health, and you hold, I know there's multiple classes to get that we have different people for each department who take the classes to make sure they're always trained to be able to handle whatever it is. I mean, this size of a county like ours is bigger than multiple states. We have to be ready for everything internally with us and our partners, and that's the partners are local cities and our state.
NGOs like American Red Cross. We partner heavily with American Red Cross. We have a volunteer organizations after disaster, VOAD. They bring in volunteer organizations such as Houses of Faith that help us with food or other things at the shelters. So we have not just governmental entities, but we come together as a whole community approach to make sure that everything's taken care of. And just a fun note, when we did activate for the Line of the Bridge fire, there was a gentleman, I went to go check on the animal shelter at the Victorville Fairgrounds, and he said that his dog refused to come home because our staff had taken such good care of the dog, walking him and petting him and everything.
More attention there.
More attention. And he said, my dog just won't come home with me. So we do care about our residents and their family members, whether that's a furry family or whoever it is. So just wanted to
a little bit more time. Tell us about the new building that we're going to set up for the county.
Yeah.
Because I'm embarrassed, but right now our EOC is in buildings that were meant to last maybe 10, 15 years. You've been there for like 30 years. So we finally got the money together to be a new building. But what's the future of technology and emergency
It's
operations?
really exciting times because we have our fire department has tablet command that's going to link up into it's called the Valley Communication Center. So the second floor will be the Emergency Operations Center, and the third floor will be the communication. So the 911 comes for the sheriff, and the 911 comes for the ambulance for Confire. So we're going to be able to talk to each other. We're going to be able to the drone program is going to be linked into the VCC and the EOC. So we'll be able to see drone footage before we even have responders there. The technology is always changing. So now we are going to have a very large video wall with, now the screens are little tiles that can be removed, and the clarity in them is great. We can have up to 30 pieces of information, so we can be monitoring social media. We can be monitoring our different cameras around the county, different cameras around the state, our drone footage, any intelligence that comes in from either law or fire.
Well, I know our fire chief was Damons, who was talking about early warning sensors, so we can spot a fire within the first couple minutes and keep it small so it doesn't get big. But that would be cameras on top of the mountain, maybe, but it detects with artificial intelligence fires and stuff like that. So I think all the stuff that we're investing into technology makes us work smarter, I guess.
Yeah.
And hopefully is a force multiplier in some cases. So we could keep things down. So I'm excited to see that on coming up at the end of the year.
Yeah. We're excited to do the groundbreaking and get in there. And we have a lot of partnerships also with the state, so that we're trying to get all the technology that would benefit us so that we're ahead of the curve instead of trying to scramble for information. It's good times.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time today and your expertise for the county. And I know every time you have to watch the Weather Channel because the rain's coming next week. You're already doing things to prepare for those rains, right?
Yeah.
And I know that we have like our public works go around. So this is something I think would be interesting for folks. There's things that multiple staffs do as soon as we hear of an earthquake, because I've been through a lot in this county. We have public works go out and look at roads, water lines. We have major gas and natural gas lines going through our county from here to Nevada. We got a lot of infrastructure that we know those weak points. So we send people out, just like you were talking about the fire earlier. Now, since when rains come, if it's going to be heavy rain, we have people out there watching to make sure that it's safe for people to go up and down the roads and we don't have a part of the road come out. Stuff. But just know that the county is going to be doing their job, but we need to do our job too as residents. And we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves and our family and our friends the best way and be prepared the best way we can. And we get that information where?
So the place to go is our website. It's prepare.sbcounty.gov. Again, that's prepare.sbcounty.gov. So please visit that website for all the tools and resources to be prepared.
And if we want to have your department partner up with cities, other nonprofit organizations, where they get their information for that?
The website for us would be oes.sbcounty.gov. So that's short for Office of Emergency Services. So again, that's oes.sbcounty.gov, and you'll find our office phone number there, and you can give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to partner with you.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking your time today to help us educate. Where our goal here is to really open up and be transparent of how San Bernardino County and government in general is functioning, and what we think about is from an elected position, but also the key players that really decide how things go forward. So your insight's been very useful and hopefully very educational to the people who are watching today. Thank you for watching, and I really appreciate you being educated with us today. Our goal here is to be very transparent at how government works. So thank you for watching this episode of Govern. Until next time.
We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found some valuable insights. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, remember that your voice matters in government.